The penultimate arc in the Arabasta saga of One Piece is none other than the well-appreciated Drum Island arc. It serves as a major stopping point for the Straw Hats on their journey to the desert kingdom of Arabasta, and ironically, it's an island with a unique climate where it snows all year around, sort of the opposite to Arabasta. This arc is quite unique because it's considered, from what I gather, to be just a nice, solid arc of One Piece by most of the fandom, with really only one major flaw that brings it down from being great to just pretty solid. We'll talk about that element a lot in this video, so don't you worry about that. As well, it's the second longest arc in the Arabasta saga, coming in at a whopping 24 chapters, which makes this entire arc sort of a breeze to read through and experience. However, I was excited going into this arc because it would feature one of One Piece's fan-favorite mascot characters, Tony Chopper, more specifically, his introduction to the series, along with another fan-favorite character, Dr. Kureha, who is so beloved that even Jamie Lee Curtis, legendary Hollywood actress, desperately wants to play the character if One Piece live action is to have a season 2. So once again, going in, I was pretty pumped for this arc. So, other than that, this video is a compilation of my reactions to every chapter in Drum Island, along with some of my theories and thoughts along the way. So without further ado, this is the penultimate Drum Island. Also, get subscribed, as if everyone watching this video right now currently hits that subscribe button, I will be at basically 70,000 subscribers, which would be a huge help for me. Start the arc in an interesting manner. Sanji is crying, asking Vivi if Nami is going to die from her sickness. What a sip! And don't think I don't read my comments either, by the way. I do, and I'm not a simp for Nami, and I'm not the same as Sanji because of that. Anyone who calls me simp, by the way, will be banished to the Shadow Realm, and I'll just reply to your accusations with a, hey, neat comment down in the comments below. And let me tell you, I'll be laying in those extra exclamation marks.
You have been warned.
Back to more serious adulting conversations. My wife is sick, but as Vivi explains, being sick on the Grand Line is anything but good, as you would expect. Because of the chaotic climates of the Grand Line, it's actually very easy to catch a cold. Even the most hardened pirates of the Grand Line can, and likely will, get sick and even die, all of which are very common occurrences. So because of this, Nami is in need of a doctor. However, the only person on board who knows doctoring things is Nami, who is clearly not taking calls at the moment, so they're out of luck. Then we learn some truly horrific things. Sanji has been feeding Vivi and Nami perfectly balanced meals. Oh, the horror. While Luffy and Usopp essentially got the meals he would mess up on. Okay, maybe actually the horror on that one. Not cool, man, not cool! Though things get worse, as Nami's temperature is 104 degrees, a temperature that could potentially kill Nami if not gotten under control. So, her new goal is simple: find a doctor. Though, Nami awakes from her fever to be the bearer of bad news. A newspaper in Nami's desk shows that 300,000 soldiers have defected from Arabasta's royal army to join the rebels. This means that the rebel army has 700,000 soldiers, while the royal army only has 300,000, putting them at a disadvantage. The reason Nami kept this a secret from Vivi for 3 days, however, is because she didn't want her to worry about it. Though, with the way things are now, she kinda was forced to. Even worse is Nami insists all of her sickness is just sunstroke and that she's okay. So she says they need to stick to the plan and keep moving forward. So, keeping in time here, I just want to talk about some of my thoughts about this scene. I love the tenacity of Nami to keep going despite being stricken with a 104 degree temperature, though at the same time, this is not really the right place for her to do what she's about to do. I mean, they're on a ship without a doctor in the Grand Line where the climates are extreme, to put it simply. So her actions, in other words, are dumb.
What did you just say, Bill?
Ideally, she should be resting. And this is pretty much proven when taking up on her previous role. She simply has no idea what's going on. Though, either way, I respect that she's so tough that she just gets right back out there. As for Vivi, she's left with this new revelation as it sets in that if they don't get back to Arabasta quick, Crocodile will take over and her kingdom will fall into war. This was just a really good scene in general, and seeing how Vivi is handling all of this news, it is tough, but at the same time, I really feel for the gal. On the deck, it seems Nami is trying her best to lead the ship with a burning fever that actually literally burns Luffy's hand, though, as Nami even says herself, that's her normal temperature, so I guess that means, you know, she's hot, eh? You get it? Funny, right? Yeah, I'll see myself out then. However, Vivi chooses to help Nami before going to Arabasta. As with what we're about to see, Nami is massively important for the survival of the crew. Though as Nami passes out from her fever, they come across, of all things, a cyclone? Even worse, the cyclone is actually in their way. Turns out that Nami was right about her earlier hunch when she had her fever. This is actually really impressive in my opinion, because even with a burning fever that's almost killing her, Nami is able to tell there is not just a change in weather, but there's a freaking cyclone in the way. That, my friends, is skill. Though because it's in their way, they decide to search elsewhere for a doctor, and during their search in the now winter season, Zoro actually potentially spots someone who's standing on water? So yeah, picking up the tempo a little bit, he doesn't spot a ship or anything like that. Zoro spots actually a guy standing on water. Then, emerging from the sea, SeaTactics, I guess you could say, a gigantic ship appears, which, I mean, surprises me just as much as it does the Straw Hats. I mean, the ship's crew then takes over the deck of the Going Merry, and there we are introduced to Wapol of 10, the captains of the 10 Tyrant Pirates. And don't let this bulbous figure fool you. He ate that sword. That's hardcore. So be frightened. Very frightened. And their goal is simple. They want to go to Drum Kingdom, and when they figure out the Straw Hats don't have a post to Drum Kingdom, Wapol decides to familiarize himself with their belongings in a very interesting way. He starts to literally eat the Going Merry. Now, I don't have a huge appetite these days, but in my busking days, I could probably do about half a ship a day. So seeing Wapol here do this, that's pretty impressive, but you know, I'm just saying, it actually used to be known as Eat Tactics, believe it or not, back in the old days. I was very talented at mastication, is what they used to say. However, the Straw Hats don't take this act of mastication lightly, and they go to battle with the Tyrants. Though interestingly enough, during the skirmish, some of the Tyrants yell out that Wapol holds the power of the Munch Munch fruit, which I assume, obviously, is, with this power, Wapol has the ability to eat his way through a pizza pie or two with no issues, if you catch my drift. Though, as Wapol detaches his jaw for maximum bitage, Luffy sends Wapol flying as the Tyrants look on befuddled. Good word, by the way, befuddled. Honestly, I'm surprised. Wapol just shows up and you think, oh, this guy's kind of a joke, but he literally started to eat the Going Merry, and then Luffy just sends him flying off? I mean, what? What just happened? What? And I think the shock on the 10 Tyrant Pirates' faces is pretty much my shock as well. There's a lot of mutual feelings in this chapter, I've started to notice. So, resuming their activities, they need to drop anchor somewhere, and soon, because the sun is going down, which will only make things worse for my wife. However, on the deck, they ponder what those tyrants were, though they quickly just ignore it. As would I. I mean, he ate a part of the ship, might as well just pretend that never happened. Though there is good news, maybe actually don't pretend that didn't happen. Fix it and then pretend that never happened. Though there is good news, they're coming close to a winter island of some sort, and Vivi knows this because the islands of the Grand Line are actually divided up into 4 types. So you have your normal ones, right? Summer, spring, autumn, and winter islands. And not only that, but they each have their own 4 seasons. So this really means that sailing the Grand Line, as Vivi puts it, you'll have to endure 16 seasons. Even then, though, there are unknown weather patterns, so the Grand Line, even when it seems certain in its turbulence, is really still a mixed bag when you dive into it more and more. Though, there is some sort of method to this madness, as stable weather usually means the sign of a nearby island, which makes sense if they're basing it off seasons, so it's a nice piece of logic I like. And, well, Vivi is right, as they come upon a new island. Drum Island. The very one the 10 tyrants were looking for. As they plan to get ready to land on Drum Island to look for a doctor, they all are confronted by the people of, well, Drum Island, who consider them nothing more than dirty scallywags. Though there is justification, we'll get onto that later. They do open fire on the Straw Hats, which angers Luffy, to which Vivi actually has to hold Luffy back, who is fuming with anger. So now, with Vivi actually shot, she drops to her knees and begs for forgiveness and a doctor. Luffy, seeing this, clearly realizes he was in the wrong to get angry, so he apologizes and gets on his knees. And so, the people of Drum Island agree to take them to a doctor. However, there are some caveats. There's only one doctor, and they call her a witch. I want to mention this because my friend Carp from the channel Carptail mentioned that this moment is a very good parallel to when we see Vivi as a kid be hit by Wapol. Once again, she is taking the punishment from Wapol, and there isn't much really she can do about it other than just grin, bear it, and move on. And just to say about this chapter, I enjoyed this. It showed that when clearly in the wrong and in a state of mind where he could realize he is wrong, Luffy does the right thing here and apologizes. And it's funny because while Luffy is a mad lad, the man also isn't stupid. And, well, I mean, if you know what I mean, he's kind of stupid, but you get what I mean. And while it's a small aspect of this humility that he sometimes brandishes, it's an aspect I love. It's a small one, but it's one that I think is important. They then learn from the island's inhabitants that the country they live in actually has no name. Which is actually sort of apt in this scenario because the island is a very strange one with bears walking around, just hiking. They are then introduced to the village, however, the Snow Village Bighorn, another apt name considering the gigantic horn-like structures which come out of the mountain, though a strange occurrence. Something they've noticed is that the civilians are armed. In other words, they're not real soldiers. On top of that, there is an election happening in 2 days, in which one of the candidates apparently is so popular that it's said everyone on the island is voting for him. This is when we learn of the kind man's name that has been leading them, Captain Dalton, a Drum Island civilian guard. Though, funnily enough, Dalton notices something about Vivi. He's seen her somewhere before. Obviously, she is the princess of Arabasta, though this little line of dialogue says quite a bit. For one, it shows how important the kingdom of Arabasta is in the world of One Piece, something that is obvious, but has it been widely confirmed in regards to the different and various islands so far? As well, and most importantly, Vivi is a known commodity of sorts. People actually notice who she is, and thus it puts into perspective what she's had to do so far to go undercover the way that she has. And I can't imagine how it was to keep your identity safe when you're the princess of, well, Arabasta, a kingdom in turmoil and revolt, something everybody is keeping their eyes on. Though, thankfully, Vivi is able to throw Dalton off, instead asking about the Witch of Bighorn. In the mountains known only as the Drum Rockies lies the 140-year-old witch, Dr. Kureha, at the very tallest peak in a castle, and while she comes down sometimes to treat sick people and give out things to aid, it is rare. What's more is that she comes down on a sleigh, much like a certain bearded fellow we all know. Though some will even say she has a strange beast along with her, so, shit's about to get really real, dog. Though because of her rare visits, they can't wait a single moment, as Nami's fever keeps climbing, requiring the Straw Hats to themselves go into the Drum Rockies with Nami in tow to get her help. While the Straw Hats try to convince Luffy otherwise, Luffy decides, you know what, we gotta do this, and ties Nami to his back and begins his climb on the other side of the mountain. And the reason for this is because of the vicious flesh-eating rabbits called lapins. So not only do we have Wapol, now we got flesh-eating rabbits too? What is this? An all-you-can-eat buffet? So they start on the other side. Is what I expected, but instead Sanji joins them and they take off into the mountain, directly through it, full-blown, through all those terrible critters, and I just love it. The smell of caution being thrown to the wind. And while they make their way up the island, we learn about the village. Apparently a pirate named Blackbeard came along with 4 other pirates and defeated their country, just 5 in total. Though some saw this as a blessing, as the island, formerly known as Drum Kingdom, was under the rule of one Wapol of 10. That's right, that dude, who they dubbed as the worst king ever. And I agree with that, just based off the fact of, you know what, he's easily hateable, we'll just say that.
Boo! You stink!
So they inform them of their meeting with the Man of 10. And we learn that Vivi forgot that as a kid, she actually at one point met Wapol of 10. So in all the confusion of the revolt and Blackbeard and the island and stuff, Wapol became a pirate. Which actually is in reality just a cover for him to be searching for another island to rule. And to make matters much worse, Wapol didn't even attempt to fight Blackbeard and his men at all, instead fleeing to their ship to escape the pirates. Vivi, hearing all of this, is angered, showing that she doesn't believe in a king who would abandon their people. And this to me really shows that she's not like most people where at first sight of trouble, she would flee. Nah, Vivi is real. She stays to fight and will do whatever it is that it takes, even if it is to leave and go undercover to somehow save her kingdom. Yeah, Vivi's got good character. So now Bighorn is stuck in a position where they are trying to rebuild, but fear that Wapol may return to restore the monarchy. Their attempts to build a new and peaceful nation would all be for nothing if that were to occur. So as Sanji and Luffy are dodging many flesh-eating rabbits on their way to Dr. Kureha, they talk about some really strange stuff. Sanji, for one, believes that people in cold weather don't actually sleep, because if they do, the cold would kill them. He also believes women in snow countries have white skin because they rub it a lot to keep warm, and thus the color of snow gets absorbed into their skin. And just so we know, just so you're clear, I'm also the president. Then they run into a pack of big chungus, or is it big chungai? Either way, they are actually the lapins, and despite their size, they are just as fast as small rabbits and also attack in packs. You thought it couldn't get worse? Well, it got worse. Dr. Kureha is in the other town, and boy, you just thought it couldn't get any worse, could ya? Wapol 10 is also back, and they're headed for Drum Island. And you keep thinking, how could it get any worse? And you just had to think it. You just did. And it did get worse. There is crying children in the next town. Oh, that's not a bad thing, is it? But hey, at least we're formally introduced to none other than Dr. Kureha herself and her beloved reindeer, Tony Chopper. Sounds like something you'd see on a box of cereal in the morning. So she treats the crying kid, and though it may look like torture, it wasn't that much. And it turns out that the kid had a bacterial infection, which needs to be treated with, obviously, antibiotics. So as payment for allegedly treating the child, she wants half of the store's assets. Seems reasonable. And reasonable she is, because she actually only ended up taking about 49% and not 50%. Like I said, y'all, that's reasonable, right? So, I gotta say, I am enjoying these first few chapters of Drum Island. Of course, I know about Tony Chopper. I'm just not sure how he turns into the lovable form we all love him as. That's really the only thing that confuses me right now. My ultra awesome SeaTactics theories on this, how that'll happen. Krillin dies and he becomes the legendary reindeer Super Chopper 2. Though, you know what? That's probably a really good theory to have. You know, I'm gonna write that down. Though I will admit as well, I really dig Dr. Kureha. She's kooky, old, and probably violates too many health codes to be considered a doctor, but I still dig it nonetheless. I just wonder how Sanji and Luffy are going to save Nami though, because if she's in the town over, does that mean they won't be in time to rescue Nami? nah, obviously she's going to survive. She's a main character, and most importantly, my wife. So my theory is that they'll probably meet at the castle, and there she will treat Nami in the last second, or hey, maybe Chopper will do it, because maybe Chopper knows a lot about medicine from Kureha and needs to go back to the castle before Kureha does. Or maybe Kureha doesn't know actually anything about medicine, as evident with the kid, and it's Chopper that knows all the stuff. I don't know. Either way, we also got to talk about Wapol of Tin. Obviously, he was blasted off into the stratosphere, but with his crew coming back to Drum Island, I can only expect a war against the Tin Tyrant pirates where the Straw Hats, down a Nami and up a Chopper and possibly a Kureha, are able to actually help and fend off Wapol and his men. Though really, honestly, I loved a lot of other stuff in this chapter, like learning about Blackbeard, which I know is a huge thing in One Piece, so just why did Blackbeard come to Drum Island? Was it to liberate the people from Wapol? Or was it to take Drum Island for himself? Also as well, natural questions that come from this is how powerful is Blackbeard really? After all, he didn't end up fighting anyone. So there are just many questions coming from these first handful of chapters. Dalton is on a sleigh with the other Straw Hats as they quickly head to Dr. Kureha's location in the village of Cocoa Weed to get chocolate wasted, I assume. However, the reason that Dalton didn't consider Kureha coming to town is because she already did the day prior. Meaning that it's just as Dalton says, Kureha really only comes to town once in a while. So the real question is simple. Why twice in a row? If something like that is so rare, why twice in a row all of a sudden? These are questions I ask myself in the shower. Though, interestingly enough, Dalton apologizes to the Straw Hats because there aren't enough doctors in the country. Vivi reassures Dalton that, well, that's okay, after all, this is sort of out of his control, and this shows, honestly, the good nature of Vivi to reassure Dalton. You can see in her facial expression, she's trying her best to ease Dalton's mind, while Dalton clearly is contemplating a lot right now. I imagine that in this situation, he's taking mental notes to have more doctors in the country as they rebuild. This is what I would do if I were him, at least. So, as they hurry onto their destination, we see a flying Chungus, a rare Chungus. It dives at Sanji, Luffy, and Nami as it uses its claws to try and take them out. They quickly realize that this is the Lappins that Dalton had warned them about, and oh golly, the shock in their body language is tantamount. Sanji, however, picks up that these Lappins are so well adapted to their environment, they're actually the ones with the disadvantage here. In other words, this is not their game. Luffy, eager to get into the action, is stopped by Sanji, and he's reminded that he can't simply go in guns blazing like that because Nami is attached to his person. So, by doing that, he's potentially making Nami's fever worse. Because of this, I really felt the tension in this moment for that very reason. Now that Luffy is pretty much relegated to dodging, which even then that can't be good for Nami with her jostling around like that. Now remove the most important chess piece in their puzzle, Luffy. You take out the OP Rubber Man and nerf the entire situation, and that naturally will create a lot of tension. And we see this as they commence their delicate balancing act, where Sanji is launching an all-out attack, but well-thought-out attacks and dodges, while Luffy is trying his best to simply not move around a lot and dodge attack after attack by the Chungai. Sanji puts it best, dodge and run, because if you can dodge a Chungus, you can dodge Chungai. On the other side of the island, things are just as bad as Wapol and his men begin their reinvasion of Drum Island, killing some of the guards, which, as a reminder, are not trained, but civilians. So they stood no chance against Wapol and his 10 tyrant pirates. This is where we also learned that this guy is named Chess, which, just as last time, is a very apt name. What's going on with all of these very apt names? We also are introduced to Robson, Wapol's woolly hippo. Turns out that Wapol actually killed Robson's brother and even mocks Robson for it. This shows the absolute craziness of Wapol to kill Robson's brother, then cheer him on as if it's some glorious occasion. This is a display afterwards when it's revealed to Wapol that the Straw Hats are on Drum Island, or as Wapol calls it, his island. So, they head to Drum Kingdom in search of Luffy and his men on a mission to kill all of the Straw Hats. Also, small side note, I like the description for Chess and Kuromarimo, who are both labeled as former Drum Kingdom Evil Chief of Staff. Like, evil is literally in their job description. That's both frightening and sad, and the only time I've been frightened and sad is when I looked at myself in the mirror. Heyo! I'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks for coming out. Though, Dalton is also informed of the presence of his enemy as he heads back to Bighorn Village to defend his people from Wapol of Tin. And I'm not gonna lie, I love the art of him riding on his horse back to Bighorn swiftly, as with a look of badassery upon himself. For some reason, it actually reminded me of Samurai Jack, just in the way it looked and how dramatic it was. He even had a badass line where he says that he's not after justice because both him and Wapol are guilty of the same sin, and asks him to just wait. Man, Dalton is shouldering a lot of this burden based on his words, but most importantly, it seems like he's accepting it all, shouldering it, and coming into the situation with the most massive pipe you will ever see. So cool. So, Bighorn prepares for the defense of their homeland against Wapol and the 10 Tyrant Pirates. And Luffy and Sanji as well deal with their problem as the Lapins start to jump up and down in unison, causing the potential of a landslide. Just ramping up and up and up the tension as much as Oda possibly can. This is something I've actually really liked so far about this chapter, and especially this arc. The tension is definitely a defining trait. Even Usopp and Vivi, who are trying to make it to Gyasta, are dealing with a lot of tension as they miss the sign to Gyasta while arguing. Which clearly is Usopp's fault. Don't at me, Veronica, but really though, thanks for watching, Veronica. I appreciate your viewership. We also get a taste of how delusional Wapol is as he stands atop Robson, calling to his people to give him praise. Then is informed by Kuromarimo that the Straw Hats are headed for Drum Castle. This sends Wapol into a shock as he realizes that Kureha is now in his town. But before Wapol can whine and complain, Dalton makes a heroic entrance that may as well make him look like the Messiah of Drum Island as he slashes Wapol across the chest and announces his intent to kill him. Chess, interestingly, asks why he's still alive, and we learned something pretty unique. A defining trait of Drum Island is that it's called the Great Medical Land of Drum Island. We are then introduced to a bevy of doctors as they repair, stitch, and scalpel Wapol of Tin back to good health in mere seconds. Then, Dalton tells Wapol that he doesn't belong here as they confront each other to fight. This was a cool moment. Learning about the true meaning behind Drum Island, why it's so special in the Grand Line. I mean, this is an island full of medical wonders, and Wapol has partitioned off these doctors to his own pirate crew, no less. Once again, cementing the fact that Wapol only cares about himself. However, a bombshell is dropped as it's revealed that Dalton was at one point Wapol's vassal, the former commander of the Drum Kingdom militia, and is the only one who stayed behind to defend the people of Drum Island. Though even more surprising is that the outsiders thought Drum Island was a place of advanced medicine, when in reality there were only 20 doctors and they all worked within Drum Castle, expelling all of the others from the country. Wapol justifies this with a grin, saying just politics, but Dalton yells back in anger, because to him, it was bad governance. Wapol doesn't realize the position he's put everyone else in. Without doctors, all of the people not in that castle had to beg for any kind of medical treatment. But Wapol has heard enough of it as he orders his men to kill Dalton, who reveals he is holder of the ox fruit, which he is able to make his outwardly appearance that of an ox, and is so fast that he can create an after image like it's freaking Dragon Ball Z. Also, that he's a part of the Zone family, which I assume is important because of, of course it is. It's One Piece. Everything is important. But Chess draws his bow and comments. They know what his weakness is as the people of Drum Island flank him to fight and defend for Dalton's sake. As they do, Chess fires, launching 3 arrows into the torso of Dalton. The weakness? It was the people of Drum Island. In other words, Dalton dared to have a heart, and because he didn't just go along with whatever Wapol wanted, he had a conscience and cared for the people suffering and the people left rejected by their very own king. Dalton wasn't a coward. he wasn't self-absorbed. He wasn't anything but a man who cared for his people. He was more of a leader than Wapol ever was. Wapol wasn't even the pinky finger of Dalton's hand, but Dalton was over and over again the man Wapol could never be. But as Dalton falls to the ground, pierced by the arrows of his former men, the Lapins that Luffy and Sanji were dealing with cause a landslide. Now, potentially without a leader, Drum Island, and more importantly, Bighorn, are in trouble. So now, as the avalanche is starting to make its way to Bighorn due to the Lapins, Luffy and Sanji panic. What do? Who comes first? Well, according to Sanji, it's Nami because she comes first, second, third, fourth, and, well, fifth. So the two then jump up to a ledge to dodge the avalanche, but even then it's taken over by the avalanche, shredding through the trees in its path. Now, they've ran into a new issue. They've avoided the avalanche, but now they're heading down the mountain way too fast. As they head down the mountain, dodging Lapins as if their life depends on it, because, well, it does, Sanji now has to catch Luffy before he heads into the torn pieces of wood, acting as natural spikes in the ground. And it works! They both are saved. Well, that is until Sanji proceeds to disappear, only to leave behind a mitt? My canon is that he went to the Upside Down. At Bighorn, the citizens along with Wapol try to escape the avalanche. Though, much like Sanji, they all get swallowed up by the snow. Wapol, however, is able to eat his way out of the snow. Talk about brain freeze. Wapol, however, thinks it's a conspiracy, that it must have been the Straw Hats to do all this. And you know what? Who am I really? A collection of memories? Items? Am I just a being made out of star stuff drifting in the void of nothing? Who am I? Oh, I'm a One Piece fan! As for Luffy and the others, they make it out of the snow, and Luffy even saves a Lapin as a little baby Lapin cries for its parent. Both grateful, and they were saved by the benevolent Rubber Man. My theory, of course, is that the Lapins are going to chip in with the final battle against Wapol and his men. That seems obvious enough. I think that would be pretty cool. Though, shockingly, Wapol catches up to Luffy, and he begins to, just talk to him, pretty much, kind of like berate him. Luffy simply ignores him, calling to Chest to write a new law. Anyone who ignores him dies. Though, smartly, Luffy remembers Sanji's words and begins to foot it as he runs away, dodging all of Wapol's attacks, though ends up almost running into Wapol's mouth, which is really creative since he has the munch fruit. So, of course, he would try to eat Luffy, but as Luffy continues to run, Chess Kuramarimo checkmate him, I like that name, as they begin to fire on Luffy. The Lapins come to save Luffy, however, while Luffy humorously calls them polar bears. I didn't realize Luffy was the inspiration for Dragon Ball Z Abridged Son Goku. Interestingly though, Wapol points out that Lapins hate humans, so why did they help Luffy? My guess is that it was the kindness that Luffy showed them by sparing them, instead of leaving the Lapin to suffocate in the snow. And who said being a nice guy is bad? So, Luffy escapes Wapol, and there he begins his arduous climb up to Drum Castle. For over 3 hours in the wind, the cold, even splitting his fingers and hands open and almost dropping Nami. This moment was an amazing, emotional one. Because as they make it to the top, we're treated to this wonderful black and white castle with so much detail put into it and care from Oda. This truly is one of the best moments of this arc, and it's because this is where we're supposed to get something fundamental about Luffy. Luffy will do anything for Nami. Time and time again, Luffy has been driven to the brink, all in the name for our orange-haired navigator. Obviously, we can say that because navigators are important, but I do think it's 100% only because he really and truly loves and adores Nami. And I don't mean romantically either. The bond between these two is as strong as steel, impenetrable as granite, stubborn as iron, robust as carbon. It's really heartwarming to see these two care for each other so much, and to repeatedly see the two time and time again save each other's lives. It's amazing. Luffy will walk the line for Nami. That's how much that he believes in their friendship, and honestly, that's how much I believe in these two characters. Though, if poetry in motion, the cliff falls from out under Luffy as he passes out from exhaustion. And there, to save him, the blue-nosed reindeer, Tony Chopper. On the flip side, Vivi is dragging Usopp up the mountain by his face. But they do run into a topless Zoro because you gotta do something for the ladies. Am I right, ladies? And also me? But as they arrive back in Bighorn, they find that Wapol's men have taken over the small village, leading Zoro to take him out and grab his coat to cover up those nice and meaty abs. In the castle, however, Nami is finally being treated by Dr. Kureha, as she is told this is because of a Kestia. Eventually, Nami does come to and scares the shiitake mushrooms out of him, but holy crap, Nami looks so cute! I mean, Chopper tries to hide from Nami, and then tells her to get lost, but at the same time, asks her if her fever is better. This is just some really nice classic juxtaposition comedy at its finest. This is when Kureha enters drinking some ume. Ume? What the fuck's that? Anyway, she checks Nami's temperature with the tip of her finger, very cool, and introduces herself. Also, I'm just realizing now, sorry by the way, time out on the video, Dr. Kureha looks like Geddy Lee from Rush. I wonder if in the dub they got her to be voiced by him. I mean, I think that'd be pretty funny. Anyways, check out Rush. They're a pretty good band. Back to the video. So Kureha explains to Nami in a fun way that the bacteria that's infected her has come from an insect called a Kestia. These ticks, when biting, infects the victim with virulent bacteria, and over the course of 5 days, it causes a fever which never drops below 104 degrees, meaning that Nami had around 2 days left of life before dying. How sad. Though, what's even more interesting is the Kestuas were eradicated 100 years ago, which of course, Dr. Kureha just happened to keep a vaccine of, and thank God she did. So, now she has to sit and recover for 3 days, or else she is killed. But not by the sickness, but by Kureha herself. Then, Chopper breaks into the room along with Luffy and Sanji, who are trying to eat Chopper. Why? Well, if only I knew, I would tell you. So, they knock out Luffy and Sanji and assess the damage. They begin to treat the others using the medications, phenocol, cardiotonic, and chiacillin. And the reason I'm describing this part is because I searched them up. Phenocol and chiacillin are basically antibiotics, while cardiotonics are medications that improve and increase the proficiency of the muscle which retract in your heart. So, yeah, Oda did his research. However, the dead, they rise. And as they rise and try to feast on Chopper once more, we learn from Kureha that Chopper ate the human fruit, which basically allows him to do anything a human can do, and maybe a little more. And boy, do I look dumb. Last video, I theorized everything but Chopper eating a devil fruit. Might as well have said he joined the cast of American Chopper as Paul's new son. Wouldn't have been right anyhow. One Piece, in this arc so far at least, is a little bit of a mixed bag. But I think it's overall pretty good, judging from how far we've gotten into this arc. I think what's bothering me the most with it is Wapol. I don't necessarily have any issues with the character itself, but more on how he's being implemented. There is just something about his scenes that makes it feel a little more stilted, a little bit slower paced, when all I really want to do is get back to Chopper being a cute little guy. Though I will say this, I'm glad we finally got Nami some help and they wrapped that up quickly. That had the potential to feel a hell of a lot like Goku on Namek healing for 20 episodes, but thankfully, Oda didn't do that. However, the best parts continue to be Chopper, Kureha, and even Dalton in these portions. I think that's most down to them not only being new characters, but new characters that really stand out. Dalton is the former evil guy who became good because he had a conscience, and that conscience got him killed in the very end. Dying a noble, sad, but most importantly, a pretty solid death, all things being said. My personal opinion, I always love the imagery of the hero being hit with arrows. I think that's just such a cool way to go out. Kureha, on the other hand, is also, she's kooky, a little quirky, and her interactions make her feel really important, and she might as well be. I can sense that with her that they're going to sculpt the plot and pacing around her, if not for sure in this arc, surely a future one to some degree. I mean, she's just way too good of a character not to so far. And also, Chopper. And as Marin would say, And that's pretty much how I feel about Chopper. He's just that cute. I feel like he could be the Nami of this saga, whereas in East Blue, I felt far and away Nami was the character I loved the most, though there was a lot of contention as well in this arc with Vivi. Could be tied with Chopper, who knows? I think both are characters that honestly I really love dearly, and they're kind of similar in that regard, but ultimately I love them in different ways. Luffy becoming aware of someone he could possibly have join the Straw Hats, and as is customary, Luffy begs and please gets down on his hands and knees. Come on, old lady, you gotta join us. So while they're having this debate, which Luffy is clearly losing, Chopper, when realizing they're pirates, has a flashback to a man. Who could this man be? Maybe we'll find out soon enough. But the dreaming of a different time ends, as Luffy and Sanji once again hunt the reindeer down, trying to cook them for Nami, which is quite funny though, gruesome once you kind of think about it. Who would want to eat little old Chopper? He's just too cute for that. Though eventually Chopper does make his way back to Nami's room, I assume losing the Dork Squad on the way back, to which Nami thanks him, which she then gets an interesting reply back. He kind of starts dancing and smiling from ear to ear as he tells her he doesn't accept things from humans, while Nami clearly sees how deluded he somewhat is in saying that. I do not think this is just a weird bit of random humor though. I do think this reaction comes from a place of hurt or some kind of drama, if I were to guess. Though despite being in his own shell, his reactions are obvious to read, and when Nami is asked about pirates, she responds with a glowing smile that probably could give you a heart attack. Sure did me. Want to come along? Hell, yes! Sign me up! Though it would actually be useful having Chopper along, because those 3 days sitting while Arabasta is at war can be circumvented as long as Chopper is with them, making sure Nami is recovering correctly. Though, once again, Chopper speaks as if he can't live with humans, citing that him being a reindeer is a point of contention. He even tries to reason with Nami as if he's under the assumption that she could hate him for being a reindeer. Though, as Chopper is chased away again, Nami and Kureha have an interesting discussion. Kureha says that Nami sure does have the nerve to seduce her reindeer, and Nami, walking right in, slaps that 12-gauge shotgun blasting penis on her table and says, "Do I need permission to seduce him?" Kureha, however, confirms that, indeed, Chopper has a past trauma ailing him. When Chopper was born, he had a blue nose. Thus, the other reindeer isolated him. Though, when he ate the devil fruit, the human fruit, he was cast out even more. The human he was just a monster, and to his kind, he wasn't normal either. Humans would see him and call him an abominable snowman, firing on him, throwing rocks, doing anything in their power to kill him. Chopper was neither a human, nor was he a reindeer, and he had no one and nowhere to turn to. He truly was alone, cast away by the world, rejected by everyone. So, while Luffy and Sanji's humorous antics are indeed humorous, they have a tinge of darkness to them, and is another reminder of the way people treated him so long ago. And well, Chopper is a poor, pitiful thing. And when Chopper speaks, Luffy and Sanji take notice, and Luffy immediately changes his mind and wants to recruit him, discarding the previous judgments of him being a monster and replacing those feelings behind it with one of admiration and intrigue. Now, instead of being chased as a rejection of who he is, Chopper is chased because who he is valuable to them, though still probably equally as scary either way. Back at Bighorn, Zoro has taken out the last of the pirates, and they begin their search for Dalton, digging up the snow anywhere they think he may be. And just as they find the man, Chopper goes to warn Kureha that Wapol is back, and even worse, he's just outside their door. As Wapol notices the flag has been changed, out walks Dr. Kureha, proclaiming she burned the damned thing. We learned here that Kureha is actually the last of the survivors from the Great Doctor Hunt, which sought to eliminate every doctor on Drum Island that wasn't working in Wapol's castle. Turns out Kureha turned this castle after he was driven out into a mausoleum for the quack Dr. Hiriluk. And as Luffy comes out to hit Wapol with Gum Gum Bullet, and as they find the body of Dalton under the snow, begins the tale of a quack doctor that gave Chopper his name, Dr. Hiriluk. 6 years earlier, Dr. Hiriluk escapes the scene of a burning building with 50,000 berries. The berries he stole and the scene he caused by setting fire to the house. To say that Hiriluk was well-liked amongst his community would be a little bit of an understatement. He would crash through the chimneys and forcibly demand he treat people, going as far as to shoot people with a tranquilizer if they did not cooperate or try to stop him. He would then use his, as he dubbed it, cure-all to treat his patients, though he truly did all he could for the betterment of them, not even taking money from them. However, his cure-all never worked, and thus was ostracized by people who would rather take on the chance of begging their dictator for help than to receive help from Hiriluk, who did nothing but make their common colds into something much worse. Even Kureha tells Hiriluk at one point that if it weren't for himself insisting on him being a doctor, so many people wouldn't need to suffer from just a common cold. This is pretty huge, because it implies that it wasn't Wapol who did a lot of damage, and sure he did, but as well Hiriluk. As Kureha states, hundreds of people suffer because of him. Though still, Hiriluk promises, even if he's the only doctor they hate on this island where there are 21 left, his medicine will be the one to save Drum Kingdom, not destroy it, as Kureha states. To sum it up, Hiriluk has deluded himself into thinking he is the savior and believes it so much that he can't accept the damage that he's caused to the entire kingdom. Despite everyone hating him, driving him out, ostracizing him, he still keeps going. This is when he comes upon Chopper, who is bleeding out and alone, accepting his life and dying there. Though Chopper refuses the doctor's movements to treat his wound, and neither does Hiriluk, as he strips naked to convince Chopper that he never hurt him and only wants him to heal. And this actually convinces Chopper, who is brought to Hiriluk's home and as he awake, cries, eating bread. Finally, someone helped him, and while a cute, wholesome, and heartwarming moment is the culmination and resolution of Chopper's suffering. The simple act of Hiriluk sleeping in his chair, leaving some bread and milk and or water, I'm colorblind, and giving him his bed to sleep in. These 3 simple acts of common decency for Chopper is something he has never experienced before. So when he finally gets something that he sought for his entire life, he cries, overwhelmed with the emotions of feeling as if he found someone who can be his companion, his friend. Chopper, in a way, is finally home. He's happy, and Oda conveyed that absolutely brilliantly with his art and writing. And while I can see why some may hate the overly animated crying faces, which all seem to be variations on the same thing, I don't know. I think that adds a lot of charm to the drawing. No matter how valid or invalid or fair and unfair these criticisms may seem, it just works. However, it wasn't easy for Chopper to simply accept this kindness either. He still had his doubts. He didn't speak for 3 days because his past experiences taught him if he talked, people found him horrifying because reindeers do not talk. As he's describing this, you can see him looking down as the weight of his sorrow clearly affects him, and all I can think of is how could anyone treat such a cute little reindeer like him so horribly? But that shows perspective, right? From the other's perspective, this cute little reindeer with a blue nose is a monster that can change forms. But to Chopper, to Hiriluk, and to us, he's an adorable little mitten that deserves only hugs and love. At least that's how I feel. You can share your thoughts in the comments below, if you dare. Though, it turns out that Hiriluk's home may be a tad explosive, or maybe very, as it explodes, sending the two flying from the Drum Mountain into the snowy forests below. Then Hiriluk names the little feller, calls him Chopper. Why Chopper? Because he's a reindeer and a Tanakai, and his antlers are indeed fine, so fine they could chop down a tree. So his name, Tony Chopper. And a fine name it is, dear viewer, because on this faithful night, Hiriluk and Chopper will go down in history as the greatest duo of all time. At least that's what my heart says, because Chopper reacts like the ball of the dance asked him to, well, a dance. Kinda cute, isn't it? This flashback is rather handy all around though, as we learn about Dalton's past as captain of security of Drum Kingdom and his path to becoming the man he is, or did, I guess, one that would turn his back on Wapol. We see Dalton, who really always cared about the people of Drum Island, when his comrades Kuramarimo and Chess would rather drink and have fun because to them, that is how kingdoms are supposed to be ran. Wapol rules with his iron fist, which is protecting everyone. It's keeping things in order, at least how that's the bastards sell it. Though in the holy land of Marihois, I guess that's a place we'll learn about in the future, maybe even in Arabasta. Hope I pronounced any of that stuff correctly, by the way. Wapol is formed of a revolutionary dragon. Ah, yes, our good old buddy, Dragon. We saw our first glimpse of this man way back in the Logtown arc. That's right, I learned how to pronounce it. Though Wapol's stubborn, I think I've been told all the time that I'm pronouncing things wrong when I'm clearly pronouncing things right, so who knows really for sure. Though Wapol stubbornly thinks that Drum Kingdom could never succumb to Dragon, which leads to Nefeltari Cobra, the father of Vivi, to call him a fool. Turns out this was the moment Vivi mentioned earlier when she met Wapol, and oh boy did she, because he backhands Vivi after being told off. Of course, Wapol said it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it. I would never. Oh, shut up, you big bitchy bitch. Stop lying. And when Igaram is about to go, me, kick his ass, it's actually Vivi, the adorable angel that she is, that says, yeah, no, it's all right. Even Dalton thinks Vivi is amazing after witnessing this whole thing, because she is able to show so much restraint as a little girl that she can control her anger and also control others like Igaram, convincing them that this is all just an accident. Though, with Dalton seeing this only strengthens his feelings against Wapol as well. Vivi, a 10-year-old, can be that mature. Wapol can't even handle his own feelings, striking the daughter of a powerful political figure and, a poor defenseless child, nearly getting Drum Kingdom into war. But what is he told? Oh, don't worry about that, Dalton. Politics aren't about feelings, it's about power. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Tell that same line to Wapol. But they won't, because that very line of thinking is never applied to their own. Of course, Dalton would turn on Wapol eventually. They're just a bunch of big crying babies who only care about their own comfort anyway, so, good riddance. Though, when it comes to Chopper and Hiriluk, there is also a surprising sense of maturity that comes from the Doctor. He tells Chopper to not judge the people as they are now, not to blame all of them, because the people and their country are sick right now, and it's because of their government. Hiriluk, though, believes that he has the cure, and the cure is the tonic that he's making. So he tells Chopper of the story of a man that had an incurable disease that not even the richest and most talented doctors could treat. But when the man was ready to die and he saw cherry blossoms, suddenly he recovered and every doctor was surprised. He was in perfect health. This wasn't a feat of medical science, but a miracle based on a powerful emotion. So because of this, Hiriluk is spurred on, not believing there is no disease that can't be cured, and certainly that is a tall task, but he believes it. He has faith. And that faith is symbolized as the skull and crossbones he flies on his flag and to fight like a pirate. I thought that Hiriluk here was really admirable and commendable, while his task he's set himself out to do is at first something almost fantastical and unbelievable. The story he tells of the man being cured may be ridiculous, but still, this is a thing that he believes in. That motivates him to be better. Behind the words, the meaning shines true. Hiriluk wants to be the miracle that saves people. He wants to give them hope, give them faith, to make them better, to cure the illness that has plagued Drum Kingdom, Wapol of Tin. Though, fight like a pirate? Chopper doesn't know what a pirate is, and so he describes them as people who fill the sea, which in itself is just a tiny speck in a world beyond imagination. And he would sail those seas. Or rather, Hiriluk seemed to want to will into existence the wonder in Chopper to go out and achieve something so great as that. Because who knows? While the people of this island may have rejected him, Chopper may find the people he's looking for out in the sea. Maybe the Straw Hats. If you think about it, they're a bunch of misfits as well. And then there's Usopp. Something interesting happens though. Chopper grows to have a deep attachment to Hiriluk. After years of rejection and loneliness, of course Chopper would stick to Hiriluk like moss on a log. This, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, seems to annoy Hiriluk, which sort of confused me at first, because Hiriluk said all of these inspirational things to Chopper, and now it seems like he is annoyed by his presence to a certain extent. So, As they head to help more people, they only talk of a mushroom that the 20 doctors are looking for and then basically just run the rest of them off. After they escape, Hiriluk gives Chopper his hat. It's a present, or rather a peace offering, and the two spend a year adventuring together as they experiment, attempting to cure people. Attempting is a big word there, but really just having fun together. The fun times don't last though, as Hiriluk informs him that his treatment is completed. He's all healed up, and now it's time for him to go. It's time for Hiriluk and Chopper to go their separate ways. And it seems Hiriluk at this point was very eager to make him go on his way. He can't even look Chopper in the face when telling him. I thought while reading this, how could you treat Chopper this way? Why would you make him go on his own now of all times? I mean, you just gave him that hat. You treated him so well. Is he not your first successful patient you treated? There's so many things to think of. And that thought was made even worse as the next panels show the desperation in Chopper's face to get back with Hiriluk, to the point that he would even self-harm so that Hiriluk would be forced to see him. So, he comes down from his drum Rocky and shoots at Chopper, making him run away. And as he does, you see Hiriluk with a pained face, crying. And then you realize he never wanted to do any of that. This broke his heart more than it did Chopper's. But we've come to the end of yet another Drum Island video. It's really weird. Baradier learned how to pronounce that as well, claps for me, and Arlong Park, I was both able to finish in about 3 parts, but with Drum Island, I mean, there's just so much detail that I'm analyzing pretty much everything I'm seeing. In that regard, it's very different from previous review series I've done with other arcs, and honestly, for me at the very least, a welcome change. It's been a lot of fun taking my time to immerse myself into Drum Island, though I do expect things to pick up a little bit. I can't foresee every arc being this detailed. I mean, I was able to cover some arcs in 1 or 2 videos, and that really was the average for the most part for a while. So either way, I'm excited to jump into the next part of Drum Island, and I think we only got about 2 more parts left. So this arc is going to be a 4-part series. Turns out that Hiriluk has been pushing Chopper away kind of for a good reason. He's dying. Not only that, but the story of the man who was cursed seeing the cherry blossoms, well, yeah, that was Hiriluk too, and with only 4 days of life left, he won't let 30 years of research go to waste like this. He's still defiant to the very end. What he wants to do is make cherry blossoms grow on Drum Island. He believes that he can stop disease from killing anyone on this island ever again. While this happens, both Kureha and Hiriluk realize they have been followed by Chopper, and it's revealed there that Hiriluk's one final goal is to show Chopper that anything is possible by making cherry blossoms bloom. So, he demands Kureha prolong his life for at least 3 more weeks. But these will be the last 3 weeks of his life. No going back after this. At first, she really doesn't give in, but when he pulls a gun on Kureha, which, by the way, she knows is just anesthesia, she knocks him out and, well, treats him anyways. I guess all of that really did convince Kureha to treat him in the end. So, for an entire week, Hiriluk toils away, believing he can complete his grand plan in the amount of time that he has left to live. And while this happens, Chopper is out searching far and wide for something, and when that week passes, he returns to Hiriluk, pretty much mauled, but perfectly intact in his hand is a mushroom, the Amiudake mushroom. Chopper wants to save Hiriluk's life because he wants to be a doctor just like him, and of course because he loves him. Chopper risked his whole life for this man, and while Hiriluk tried to spare Chopper, probably for his own good more than Chopper's, he still returned, ready to save Hiriluk's life, doing everything that he knows to do in his power. Honestly, this is really sad and a touching moment, and it sort of almost made me cry. So, as Wapol plots the destruction of Hiriluk, he holds Chopper in his arm and promises that he can be a doctor. After all, his biggest qualification is that he has a big heart. At this point, guys, I know things aren't going to end well, so I simply try to stay brave as I read on. But just like Hiriluk, I'm hoping for some kind of miracle. So Hiriluk takes the medicine Chopper made out of the mushroom, and just as he does, we see the reaction that Hiriluk has waited 30 years for. Cherry blossoms can bloom on Drum Island. The miracle happened. His research has finally paid off. So, as Hiriluk goes off, Chopper rests as he happily is told he'll make a fine doctor by Hiriluk. Once again, Chopper, absolutely adorable. Kureha, however, seems indifferent to the miracle before her eyes, though Hiriluk makes her promise two things. One, that she'll make the cherry blossoms bloom in his place, and two, that she'll teach Chopper medicine so that he can become a doctor. Kureha, in character, denies all of this. Rather, these demands are kind of testing her patience, so as she kicks him out, Hiriluk rests assured. Despite what she says, he knows her and knows that he can count on her to teach Chopper and continue his work until the end. I mean, let's just go back to the previous chapter we just read. It's pretty clear that Kureha is a good person at heart, despite what she often says sometimes. However, while this happens, we see this really cool moment actually where people are injured, sick and feverish, people begging, etc. Because as the 20 doctors are sick, the people of Drum Kingdom grow restless of the situation. The people have finally started to lose hope in the 20 doctors, believing that they've abandoned their patients, which they clearly have. This is a huge moment because I think when it comes to authoritarian dictatorships, especially this one in particular, some, maybe, can put up with many things. But when the people feel completely abandoned to the point that they're all sick and literally dying, when they won't even turn to the man who is the quack and does his job for free, it shows how little faith people have left in Wapol's Drum Kingdom. In other words, the overthrowing started long before Blackbeard ever got to Drum Island. The dominoes started to fall when the 20 doctors started to exist. It was just one step too many. So Hiriluk does something unthinkable. He takes a guard hostage and demands he go to Drum Castle where Wapol is. Then, my heart sinks. Kureha shows up to tell Chopper what Hiriluk is up to, and he tells her he fed him the Amyudake mushroom. The shock on Kureha's face as she realizes that this mushroom wasn't a cure, it was poison. This moment of desperation, as Hiriluk, strapped with bombs, makes his way to Drum Castle, are to be his final moments, as Hiriluk is to die, and die within the hour. But Chopper doesn't believe it. That mushroom can beat any sickness. He even saw it in the book. It had a skull and crossbones, which means freedom, just like Hiriluk said about the pirates. No way this could be true, but it is. In tears, Kureha tells Chopper that a kind heart isn't enough. As a doctor, you have to as well acquire knowledge, skills, and practice, because without them, no one can be saved. Realizing the situation, Kureha leaves as Chopper weeps. He's killed the very man who has saved his life. Arriving at Drum Castle to confront Wapol, it's revealed that, actually, all of the 20 doctors are completely healthy. Which makes sense. Wapol is completely horrible, so of course he would spread such a lie. Though, Hiriluk, he's alright with this lie, as it means that everyone is safe, which is befitting. He is a doctor at the end of the day, so that would be a bit of clever writing. So as Hiriluk declares that Wapol cannot kill him, Chopper is running up to Drum Castle to rescue his friend. All the while, Hiriluk fills a vial and Dalton cries, not knowing what will become of Drum Island. And so, with Hiriluk's final words, he tells Wapol and his men to not hurt his son Chopper, holds his drink to the sky, and explodes. When do you think people die? When they are shot through the heart with a pistol? No. When they are struck by an incurable disease? No. People die when they are forgotten. This speech is simply iconic for various reasons, but mostly because it's true. People aren't forgotten the moment they leave this physical world. They die the moment they're forgotten. The memory of that person lives on forever, and we see that clearly in One Piece with Roger as an example. To this day, even though he died so long ago, his name is still spoken in irreverence, hatred, love, and sometimes even with hope. And Hiriluk will be the same for those who know him, for those who hated his treatment, for those who found him to be a father, for those who even worked with him. Hiriluk will never truly die until the last utterance of his name, and the effects he had on this world have dissolved away in the sea of time. As well, this calls back to chapter 100, when Dragon says something most interesting, so let's recap that. Inherited will, the destiny of an age, and the dreams of its people. As long as people continue to pursue the meaning of freedom, these things will never cease to be. Quote, Gold Roger. This suggests that inherited will is something that never truly stops. As long as there are people who continue to pursue the ideals of freedom as a dream, then inherited will can never cease to exist. This is massive because it shows that basically everyone has inherited the will of Gold Roger, as an example, if you're a pirate, or in Chopper's case, the will of Hiriluk. Much like Hiriluk, he now wants to pursue what he did, which is becoming the greatest doctor on the Grand Line. Chopper has inherited the dream of a man now long gone, and the freedom that will bring him will continue to drive him, just as Luffy's dream of becoming king of the pirates and finding the One Piece drives him as his own inherited will. Needless to say, guys, this was pretty intense. Hiriluk shockingly kills himself, and you best believe I was flipping through the pages again because I thought I'd missed something. This was so unexpected, but I think it worked really well because of how shocking it really was. I mean, think about it. This man literally blew himself up, and they showed that in One Piece of all things. To die so brutally like that, well, I don't think I'll ever forget that, that's for sure. So, when Chopper arrives, he is pinned down by Dalton and tells him to leave, and live for the sake of Drum Island, which cements Dalton's face turn in One Piece, which leads him to being cast out eventually. And while this happens, Chopper declares to the world and Kureha that he is going to become the miracle cure that will save everyone. Because there is no disease in this world that is incurable. This caps off an incredible backstory, in my humblest of opinions. While Drum Island has been an arc where there are a lot of questionable things like Wapol of Tin that often stilts and slows down the pace of the story, there is a perfect counterbalance to it in Hiriluk and Chopper, with a backstory that kept me invested from beginning to end. Chopper's growth from starting out as a person who was ostracized by pretty much every group, isolated, because there was and really is nobody he can relate to finding Hiriluk and finally being shown kindness. Hiriluk was the extended hand, the lifeline that Chopper needed in his life, and I think it goes to show that one person believing in someone can make all of the difference in the world and change people. Without Hiriluk, Chopper might have either died that day or grew a hatred so grim and dark for people and humans that he would rage against them and one day probably get killed by them. Or maybe not. But I think it's clear that Hiriluk saved Chopper, and let me reiterate, he saved Chopper. The key here is that Hiriluk didn't just solve all of Chopper's issues. He simply taught him, told him things about life that would kickstart his growth as a person so that he can climb himself out of the hole that he was in. Instead of growing as a person who hated humans and everything around him, Hiriluk instilled in Chopper beliefs and sensibilities of someone who wants to travel the Grand Line like a pirate one day. He instilled hope to find people just like him, hoping even to become one day the greatest doctor just like his hero, Hiriluk. Chopper holds with him the knowledge, love, and passion of Hiriluk because this is what he taught him. So it's clear to me that, yes, he was a great father. This might as well be Chopper's Arlong Park moment, and I also really can't foresee the rest of Drum Island honestly being as good as this, but I don't think it really needs to be either. Why try to top a story like that? Really? There is no reason. There is no better way to introduce a video than to say Luffy knocks out Wapol. While Wapol is being tended to, Luffy tells Kureha that he knows them, and in her words, he calls them the annoying pirates who tried to eat their ship. Imagine Kureha, who's probably like imagining, I don't know, playing on her base in her head instead of being there, is told Wapol tried to eat an entire ship, and that because of that, they're annoying? Not that Luffy hates Wapol or sees this as like a personal thing, they're just annoyed. I found this whole exchange quite humorous. Even Sanji is randomly like, never mind that, aren't you cold? Just like,
yeah, that's what you come up with, Sanji? Like it was just a really funny moment. Though at the same time, this goes to establish that Luffy, and for the most part anybody who even really acknowledges Wapol as not a threat, they even outright ignore him talking, which I think plays into the problem of Wapol in this arc. It's like everyone, even the writer of the series, doesn't even like Wapol, but for some reason, he's in this arc, and now in the story. He's just the most easily hateable character inside and outside the context of the story. That's how much I care for Wapol. Even when Chess and Kureha go to defend their king's honor, I'm like, yeah, okay. And Nami's not my wife. I'm sure, okay, I'm sure. Though they will have to deal with an angry Chopper who wants to protect the castle to erect a memorial in the name of Hiriluk. To him, the flag that flies in the sky is a representation of his faith, so as they begin their battle, Luffy makes his way into Nami's room looking for clothes. Wait, what? And well, because of course he is. It's Luffy. But I'm kind of like, why would you want to cover up those guns, Luffy? Give the people what they want. So, Nami lends Luffy her jacket, and just hear me out, that's a trap. Bruh, we both know there is some hidden 300% interest rate, like you gotta give her back your soul and a blood sample along with the jacket. Though, we'll say this, in the fight, Wapol almost eats Chopper. But Luffy basically extends his legs to propel him into Wapol's stomach, making him spit out Chopper. That was a pretty cool sequence. So, as Wapol teases his ultimate move, it's revealed that the 20 doctors have turned their back on Wapol, instead wanting to treat Dalton. Turns out that Hiriluk may have been the catalyst to make the 20 doctors develop somewhat of a conscience about the demands they were made to do. Because Hiriluk taught them, by example, that they should never give up hope and that the world needs more fools like them. This is really a great aspect of Drum Island, as one of the themes of this arc is to never lose hope. That it's okay to just want something fantastical to happen, to hope for a miracle, because what else do you have? I think it even goes even deeper, in that hope is a representation of the human will to never give in to any challenge, even when the dark surrounds you and there is only one point of light. For many people, they would give up, because they'd think too pessimistically about it. But what's the harm in believing you can fight for that one dim light? You've got nothing to lose, and not only that, being negative about every situation will not help you in the long run anyways. Because at that point, you have the risk of becoming stagnant. Wapol then uses Munch Munch Factory to assemble the ultimate fighting android, Android 17. No, but really, he literally fuses Chess and Kureha to create a fusion called Chess Marimo. But do not be fooled, they're just piggybacking like two kids in a trench coat. Back in town, Vivi is talking to Usopp as she's worried and wants to go up to the mountain to seek them out, but Usopp tells Vivi she worries too much and has nothing to worry about. Couple things with this interaction here. 1, never tell a woman she worries too much. 2, yeah, Luffy and Sanji are beasts. Usopp's probably right. Though, good news, the doctors have successfully revived Dalton and he's decided to fight for Drum Island, whatever it costs him, even if he must become a villain. So, as the people look on in shock as Dalton looks about half past dead, Usopp offers to carry Dalton up the mountain. So, on the mountain, when Hiriluk's flag is taken down by an attack, this enrages Chopper, who unleashes himself at Wapol, though it's actually Luffy who catches the flag and announces to them in a heroic fashion that they do not even know the meaning of this flag. Man, Luffy is just so freaking cool. As for Dalton, he took Usopp up on his offer, so they begin on their journey to carry Dalton to Drum Castle, but thanks to some villagers, they actually offer to fix one of the ropeways, which are these things. And to me, that's a neat little piece of world building because it shows how people travel to the castle. They just have these carts which take them up to the top of the mountain. Pretty simple, but it was cool to see it. Before they arrive, Luffy, who saved the flag and used Nami's coat to tie it back, tells Wapol that he knows nothing of the meaning of flying a flag, especially one like that. Wapol further disrespects the pirate flag, but you gotta think, dude, this is Luffy. To him, the symbol of a pirate flag isn't just some band of ravenous villains. To Luffy, that flag is a symbol of hope, life. It's his message to the world showing his intent. To him, a pirate flag means freedom, a cause Luffy would take a direct hit from Wapol for, because that symbol, to him, is unbreakable. So they begin their fight to take back the life that Wapol has tried to steal. During the battle, when it seems everyone is defeated, Kureha tells Chessmarimo that when the time comes, the reindeer will act, as Chopper announces himself as the world's greatest doctor, and he uses his Bankai, Rumble Wall. Rumble Wall is basically a really awesome move that does stuff, starts off the fight with Wapol and Chopper, and we learned something really important. Zone types, like Chopper or Dalton, are limited to 3 transformations, except Chopper, who has learned more than. He then says that Rumble Ball is a medicine that can modify the transformation powers of the Devil Fruit, and after 5 years of research, he discovered 4 more transformations. Which is really funny because Chessmarimo, exasperated, just says, "Yeah, who cares how many forms you have?" And Luffy's like, "Staged? What a cool reindeer!" Just like the complete opposite reactions for the same thing. It's funny. During the fight, Chopper uses a ton of moves, which really just makes him seem overpowered, and I think that's cool. Why not just have an OP'd reindeer? And we both know that just sounds about like the coolest thing ever anyway, so why not? Though, my favorite move he used was Cloven Rose. So Chopper wins, and just like he promised, in 3 minutes. Though, in those 3 minutes, Wapol found himself inside the castle and a confrontation with Nami. I actually really like this interaction between the two, as like Fallout 76, it just works. As Nami's mischievous, hard-to-get nature juxtaposes with the overly serious, self-infatuated demeanor of Wapol in a very humorous way. Wapol pegs her as one of the Straw Hats, but Nami is like, "What? Me, a pirate? I'm just an innocent girl. What? No." So because of this, Nami runs away, which leaves Wapol to literally eat himself. I'll say it again, literally eats himself to slim down. Like, damn, I've been sitting here doing DDP yoga since day 1 and all I had to do was just eat myself? Why do we never think of these things? So Super Wapol, as I'll call him, is able to catch Nami, but Luffy just kicks him away and then the true final boss starts? Nami is not happy that Luffy destroyed her jacket, but I called it. She's gonna make him pay 3 times the original value of the jacket for interest, meaning he owes her 100,000 belly. No, I'm not changing the way I pronounced it. Though Nami is also just too many steps ahead for Wapol, as she stole the key to Wapol's arsenal when he announces to him his plans to eat all the weapons, becoming the most scuffed version of Gilgamesh that you don't even want to smash. Though Wapol has another plan, to use the Royal Drum Crown 7-shot Tin Tyrant Cannon. Good God, these naming conventions, aka, I guess the brother of the hippo he rides turned into a cannon. And can I just say, wow, that's dark. That's really, really dark. Though there is good news, the gang, along with Dalton and the villagers, are headed up the ropeway to Drum Castle. Dalton has a little bit of a flashback, which I think is the most definable moment of Wapol's entire career. After he originally defeated Dalton, Wapol stands over him and says, and I want to assure you that this is actually what he for real said. "You said there was no medicine for stupidity, but who's the stupid one now?" Really though. This flashback showed a lot of how Wapol treats his people. He's just a straight up asshole to Dalton. Back in the fight, Luffy says he doesn't care about laws or kings, which is another example of the themes of freedom in this series. Why would Luffy care about such trivial things which holds him back, like laws and authority figures? It's pretty clear already that law and authority in One Piece for the most part holds people down. So how is Wapol any different from them? Well, it's because he's not. I also like how on the ride up, Dalton's still thinking about Wapol and what his men said to him. At the end of the day, all Dalton wants is his country to have a heart, to be free of the oppressing rule of Wapol. So Dalton decides he's ready to die for it, and just like Hiriluk before him, he plans to strap himself with bombs and blow himself up. Once again, not exactly something I expected from a series with a cute cuddly reindeer DLC add-on. So, as Dalton arrives, he actually thanks Luffy because he helped free his country, something he was prepared to die for. Dalton even realizes that it was Chopper who was instrumental in saving them all, and as the town people go to fire on Chopper, thinking him to be a monster, it's actually Dalton who tells them to stop, which doesn't get through to Usopp apparently, but Kureha shows back up, vying to help all of the injured, even Nami and Sanji who are hiding, but found.
Though Nami eventually gets what she wants, as she uses the key to the armory as leverage to get out of Kureha's treatment and back onto the Going Merry.
After Chopper is chased by Usopp, however, Luffy seeks Chopper and asks him to join on the Going Merry. Obviously, Chopper still is hurt after all of the years of repeated rejection and can't exactly accept it, even though he sort of wants to. So, Luffy just demands him to shut up and come with them. I like this moment because Luffy, similar to Hiriluk, didn't allow Chopper to slide back in his feelings. Instead, just outright demanded that he come with them. For people like Chopper, I feel like this is the right move to do with them, because when he's been rejected constantly like he has, he really doesn't want to move at all, because what he has is already bad enough. Why get hurt any more than he needs to? But it's Luffy who breaks that shell of stagnation, freeing Chopper from it. Sometimes that's what we need, because I'm actually sort of the same way as Chopper, so I relate to him on that one. So he goes to Kureha and tells her he's made a decision. He's going to set sail around the world and become the Straw Hat's doctor. Kureha surprisingly tells him that he should stay, that she needs an assistant, and not only that, he'll surely die as pirates are worthless and reckless scum anywho. So he yells at Kureha that he's not just a reindeer, he's a man too. And while being chased by Kureha, escapes with a sleigh as much like Kris Kringle flies in the sky, fleeing with his new friends and the Straw Hats. Dalton and Kureha together, the latter talks about how she doesn't like tearful goodbyes. Turns out that Kureha did care about Chopper. She cared about him a lot. So, as he escapes, Kureha tells the townspeople to launch the cannons, which contain none other than Hiriluk's invention, Cherry Blossoms. The dream wasn't a lie. Hiriluk achieved it by firing red powder into the sky, which would change the snowflakes to pink. So everyone decides, in that moment, to cry like gigantic goober babies. And I'm right there with them.
So, Drum Island. Well, after a couple months away from the arc, I think it's very good. But it does have flaws.
I think the worst things about it is everything having to do with Wapol. He absolutely slows down the pace, and honestly, I would have much preferred Wapol to not even be in this arc at all. Sure, his introduction was humorous and rather unpredictable, but everything that came after felt like a stagnation of his character. He absolutely takes Drum Island down a notch or two because there's nothing notable about Wapol. He's just an evil asshole in the most stereotypical way you could write one. However, everything else in this arc is phenomenal to say the least, minus Wapol. I think Drum Island could actually be so much better, maybe on the level of Arlong Park without him. The reason for this is because of 3 characters, and actually really maybe to a lesser extent 4, Kureha, Chopper, Hiriluk, and Dalton. These first 3 characters are the heart and soul of Drum Island. Kureha is an absolutely phenomenal character who is just nailed perfectly. She's the definition of cool and also acts as a sort of pessimistic or pragmatic point of view to anchor Hiriluk, who is just, bro. I love Hiriluk. His hopeful message of never giving up on your dreams, to his shocking exit and everything in between. Hiriluk is a prime example of a character that shines in One Piece.
I know some anime viewers don't like Hiriluk because people perceive him as a character which makes no sense and insults the viewer's intelligence, which is fair to those few that think that, but I think the message of the character is a good one. And I think that fact triumphs most of all of the criticism, at least for me.
Which leads us into Chopper, who I have no complaints for. He's the classic misfit, but in the end, he becomes the real G by becoming a doctor, a pirate, and also gets to hang around Nami. So just a lot of winning. Sure, the old memories still do sting a lot, but Chopper's message of perseverance and learning to prosper is one I also relate to and think is a phenomenal message that blends really well with this entire arc's message overall, and that is freedom. The main theme of One Piece, freedom, is this arc's strongest card it played, and it did it really well. While Wapol is bland and annoying, I get the idea of him being the authoritarian figure that oppresses freedom high up on his castle, and down below the people struggle for the basic of freedoms. Dalton is a great representation of a people's struggle for that freedom, going as far as to possibly blow himself up for it, as a martyr of justice, which I obviously do not condone. So, what do I give Drum Island? Well, in terms of my rankings, I feel like the best parts of it make it an A, but I think Wapol actually drives this down to a solid B for me, and it's all because of Wapol. Everything else, I think this is an A tier arc, but I don't think it reaches Arlong Park quite as much. I think that's just sort of has to do with, well, Wapol, and I actually think a little bit of the setting as well. I don't think I like Drum Island as much as Arlong Park as a setting. Still a cool setting, but not my favorite. Though it seems Hiriluk's hopeful message would eventually work, as Hiriluk's cherry blossoms would become a symbol of Drum Island's freedom. Though something even more strange, Dalton is given Luffy's wanted poster, and the person they got it from? Well, about a week before, a person appeared in Rebelu Town. It didn't snow that day, which is very strange. Remember the random lightning strike which saved Luffy in Log Town? Well, I guess keep that in mind because this is yet another instance of weather not acting the way it should be. This person, who called himself Ace, is looking for Blackbeard's pirates, and also, which by the way, I got a figure of for Christmas. Big thanks to my cousin and his family. You know, maybe next Christmas give me a Nami one as well. I would appreciate a Nami figure. Tells them to relay a message to Luffy. I'll be waiting for him at Arabasta for 10 days. Though Dalton, for some reason, doesn't tell them because he just has a hunch they're heading there? Okay. Well, besides that, Kureha then begins to talk about Gold D. Roger and how it seems that that's not his real identity, as she says, is that what he's called now? And then says, the will of D lives on. Now, outside of Tenacious D jokes, we gotta analyze this.
Now, most people will know this as the reveal of Gold Roger's real name and identity, Gold D. Roger, making him one of the Ds along with Monkey D. Luffy, and of course, Down D. Stairs. This is massive as it shows that his naming scheme is leading to something in One Piece, and those with the initial D are very special people. I also don't think Gold Roger is Luffy's dad. That's such an easy theory to make, so my theory to counter that one is that special and certain people are named D and is passed down from some sort of secret organization of Ds. Phrasing.
Besides that confusion, however, Chopper, now on the going merry, is full of a lot of complicated feelings as the others celebrate. After all, he is leaving his home for the first time on a journey he doesn't know will pan out or not. But when Nami gives Chopper his bag of medicine, something he didn't have time to prepare, it's revealed that Kureha packed it with everything necessary for him to do the job. She cared, and in turn, realizing that Kureha actually supports Chopper's decisions, only wanted to move him to act on his dreams. So, Chopper cheers up. After all, everyone who loves and cared for him in this world only want to see Chopper go on an adventure and become the greatest doctor in the world. Meanwhile, on Little Garden, Mr. 2 is still out searching for Mr. 3 to kill him, but he remains rather illustrious as he's nowhere to be found. This leads us to Arabasta as Miss All Sunday asks if Crocodile is going, to which he says he must keep up his appearances as one of the 7 warlords. After all, he believes he is the hero to the masses.
Thank you everyone for your continued support on these One Piece videos. I hope you enjoyed my review and reaction to Drum Island's arc and all that it entailed. This series is fully patron supported and backed. We release these 1 month early on Patreon before it releases on YouTube for free feeds. No sponsors, no BS, all fan backed. So if you want to financially support this series and get access to my giant 90-minute Arabasta video, then please consider becoming a patron. On the left is a playlist of all of my current One Piece videos, past, present, and future. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.